everybody. Thanks for joining us today for another session of Open Tech Convo. Um, so today we have Vivek, Varadarajan, and Brandon Krieger, from the US, joining us today to talk about, cybersecurity, basically. What are the benefits of implementing good cybersecurity policies for small companies, for startups, and what it can do for your business in general. Because as I said, this platform was created basically to help small and businesses and startups to find ways of innovating and growing their various revenue streams, or even just staying sustainable, because there are lots of challenges everywhere. But through a community of practice with other techs, you can find ways of developing your business and take it further. I will let the panelists, go ahead and introduce themselves. And once the panelists introduce themselves, since this is, a very informal, gathering, it's mainly, guided by discussion and Q&A. So once those panelists have introduced themselves, we'll open the floor to everyone. And the thing is, if later on the discussion gets very intense and very lovely, then we'll open it up some more for panelists to also ask questions to the attendees. But it's a two-way game. Nobody's immune to questions. So let's share what we can, share experiences, and then have a good session. So I'll go ahead and let, Vivek, you mind going ahead and getting started with the introductions?
Yeah. So good afternoon, good morning, where it might be. So my background is in the. So I'm basically I work in the DoD, U.S. Army, U.S. Army as an active duty military service member, right? And but for better words, it's the Department of Defense. So I'm essentially a Department of Defense employee, but AKA a soldier also. But at the same time, I'm in the field of cybersecurity in the DoD or in the military, and my lens, whatever information that I have or experience that I have with cybersecurity, it's not so much from a corporate standpoint, but it definitely has a lot of the parallels from corporate, or a business perspective, right? Because even in the military, a lot of cybersecurity principles come in because we have classified information and so on and so forth. The DoD by itself, the first thing about DoD is protecting assets and nations. So that's why I'm in this field within the structure of the DoD, and I come with that lens. Whatever I say has that perspective. So with this, I'll toss it to Brandon, who has a different viewpoint.
Awesome. Thanks, Vivek. I know Vivek from quite some time right now. My name is Brandon Krieger. I'm a VCISO consultant, and been doing cybersecurity sales and consulting for about 5 years now, working with companies all different sizes, from SMB all the way to enterprise environment, talking about cybersecurity programs, policies, procedures, maturity, governance, compliance, new technology, whatever that may be, through the scope of cybersecurity and business strategies. So opening the conversation today to ask all your questions, be it business strategy, cybersecurity, or a hybrid of both. We're open to answering any of those questions.
Thank you so much, guys. That was lovely. And thanks, Brandon. You certainly opened up the scope.
There you go.
Opened the doors, the window, and the rooftop. We could just land with parachutes.
Like I said, we're bringing two different perspectives. Well, I wouldn't say different, two complementing perspectives from two different sides, and that really enhances the volume of this discussion for sure. And I do want to go back and say I know Brandon through some of his podcasts and discussions online, and this is a small world. I tell you what, here we are now.
Certainly.
For sure.
Actually checked out the webinar the other day, and it was pretty good. And for the amount of time on Twitch, everyone was engaged, jokes, nuggets, everything was shared in a very open space. So that was very, very good. And the dancing wasn't that bad either. and the mascot. So yeah, so there's quite a bit, keeping it in a cheerful mood while sharing some important information. That's always welcome.
Sure.
I believe what we'll do is we'll go ahead, since we're not that large a group right now. What we could do is perhaps maybe hear from one or two of the people on the call as well. That way, we can start to at least see what everyone's about, because we're not that, I just received a message saying that there was a internet blackout in Gambia. So that's another topic for another day. How can you have a whole blackout from an ACE, from the, yeah, exactly, from the fiber cable, it's, through traveling through the sea. But in any case, so probably some people may be joining in later. But nevertheless, we'll go ahead and share, the introductions for some of these other attendees, and that would probably guide the conversation. And since we're recording it, that would be even more beneficial, because now we can post it on various social channels to make sure other people watch, and we can always bring you guys back if you're up for it anyway, to have a part 2, with the larger crowd. So I'll go ahead and just go alphabetically. Afro Green, if you don't mind, just go ahead and give us a little bit of introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business. Afro Green, are you with us? Or are you experiencing? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we'll jump on the next. Since let's see, let's let ITAC secretary go ahead and introduce themselves. We're just going in alphabetical order.
My baby is making the most noise in the background. Hey everyone, how are you? Thank you, Brandon and Vivek, Malik, for joining the call. I'm Mengelo. The 2 hats. ITAC secretary and consultant with ITC. So thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's go with Joseph Gomez.
Hello, good day to everyone. My name is Joseph Gomez, and I'm actually ICT startup. I just have a small startup, and the main platform I actually have is I refer to as smart communication platform for mass communication, either for sending messages or receiving message through telephone. Thank you.
Also telecommunications.
Yes. Yes. Mass communications through telephone. So it's like a MailChimp for phones.
See, one thing, and let's talk on business practices in cybersecurity. We're kind of jump into the questions right now.
Yeah.
One thing you got to be careful, like as you're doing that, the robo dialing, that's kind of the technology is looking is for a robo dialer, is basically what happens. You upload a key list of leads, contacts, cold leads that you're trying to mass distribute, and call, and then give them to call into your call center. Well, through certain countries, that's considered spam. Right. So in Canada, there's the Castle law, right? The Canadian anti-spam law. So depending on where you're doing business, you got to be very careful with these mass distribution strategies, email, phone calling, things along that line, because it can get your business blacklisted. Right. So doing that now, you get your business blacklisted. Then now you have problems that, you're having challenge with marketing and business development. And depending on the industry that you're reaching out to, you got to be also careful, because certain industries have networking meetings in those industries and they'll start to talk. I mean, all of us got that air duct cleaning and window cleaning and things to companies. People now talk about it like if they call, don't answer the phone, hang up. Even if it might be a valid service now, they're actually been blacklisted, right? Through people now through communication. So being careful with that. I would say when you're looking at business development, look at proper strategies for marketing, for calling, for developing relationships. That will give you longevity, and especially set up referral marketing, where if you call someone, you build up rapport, ask them for a referral. Right? Do you know someone that I might not be interested in that service? And they might know someone, and that starts to build up your reputation and your versus just dialing for dollars.
Thank you.
Oh,
Joseph, you got anything to say?
I think Brandon, I would just want to say a big thank you to that advice. Yeah, I think it's a very good point. Yeah, normally even here, like before you actually send someone a call, the person, you have to actually get the consent of that person. And with most of the GSM company here, they're really very much sensitive about this thing, and they want to make sure that whosoever you're sending a call to, that person already have a consent to receive the call from you. So if the person do not, and you send a call to that person, then they'll just have to blacklist or even also stop your line. Yeah. So thank you for the point. Well noted.
Oh, interesting. So are you saying they have a choice to accept that service or not?
Well, what happens in certain countries, they can actually report you. So when they report your phone, you could be blacklisted, and now your phone comes up as spam. It comes up and it's identified. And then people have anti-spam blockers and things like that. And then you might not even get through, or the better business bureaus, they can start reporting you. Like I know in Canada, we have one of the organizations as the Castle Law, where now they can actually register you, and they could be fines. Depending on how many actual complaints, there can actually be fines on your business.
Yeah, that's serious.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes companies, it's harder to build business, but it makes companies more ethical in their practices.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Vision, right? With the V. That's you know that's really the sort of the vocabulary of the crime, if you will, or the act. You know, people call and like Brandon was saying, you know, a lot of spam calls. Yeah, I mean Verizon, same. I think most of the cellular networks are on this forum of blacklisting and anti-spam calls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, we got someone else, Kara. You mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, assalamu alaikum to each and everyone. I'm so happy to be one of the people that are in this. So much for this opportunity. My name is Kara Jain, and I am one of the co-founders of GISCO. We use a software development and digital marketing startup here in the Gambia, and we normally build website applications for own products that we are pushing. We have two products that we built. One of them is called G-Quiz, which is a mobile gaming application in an educational format. Now students can now use their mobile phone to practice standard examination question in a fun way. We've just released the version 1, which has been going fantastic well in terms of like usability. And we've already started work. We already completed, I would say, the version 2, where now we are looking at more of time spent on the platform rather than just students going there to practice examination questions. But we want it to be more of like a social media way, where now students can now play among themselves, you know, spend more time on the platform to better their education in a fun way. So it's like a game sort of. And another platform that we built, it's called My Lumo. It's a pilot project that we're doing with UNDP. Basically, in the Gambia here, we have what we call the informal markets. You know, markets that are happening on village sites normally. We call it My Lumo, so they are informal markets. So we want to digitalize that particular market so that these traders who are, you know, venturing into this market can easily sell their products, not just on the market, but even anywhere in the part of the Gambia. So that's the whole concept. Right now we're on the pilot phase, wherein the app is already done. And the website, but based on UNDP guidelines, they don't want to leave out anybody behind. So we're also looking at the simple phone users. So now we want to integrate the IVR system before we fully launch it. So with the IVR system, they can just dial some few numbers and they could receive like a phone call wherein they can communicate with the system based on whether they want to make a purchase or they want to sell their products. So that's the whole concept of the MyLumo platform.
Okay. No, did you have a question?
Right. So, yeah.
And if you did,
Yes,
I'm gonna chime in here. Just because maybe if your internet's not good, if you have a question, you might want to type it in.
Sure, I will. Anyways, I am so much interested into cybersecurity is because that's what I want to do in my master's, and that's what we as a startup we also want to expand our company, just software development, but also to include some cybersecurity activities on our company as well. Inshallah, if we grow to that level. But here till next year, I want to venture into cybersecurity.
Okay, and what anything specific?
Yeah, I was going to add to what cybersecurity is a huge domain. I mean, just like Brendan. So it's
saying cybersecurity is like saying, "Hey, I want to go to North America."
Exactly. I mean, or a continent, not a country. Exactly.
Where do you want to go exactly? I don't know.
Yeah, since I'm in the application phase, so we're looking at how we can make our platform more secure and also to look at the communication channel. So that's where I per se want to concentrate more.
Okay, so like more of the software development lifecycle,
yes.
development, security.
So you did mention something
He's
about
outside.
I know, chilling. Hey, I don't blame you. It's sad. So you were talking about something about, I just had a discussion. You were talking about the exam questions, like trying to make an app where students can access exam papers or questions, sample, right? Is that?
Well, he's built it. He's built it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
With the
We've already built it. It's called GQuiz.
Now, how are you registering users, or how are you getting your user pool from? I'm just curious. I mean, I know it's not like a mega business. You're starting out, small entrepreneurial, if you will. But I'm just asking you, like, how are you planning to get your users from, or your pool? Is it like certain schools, small district? Tell me.
So normally, how we, if you look at the technology here in the Gambia, not many, I would say, many people understand technology to that level. So how we did it, we just use the social media login using Firebase and also the phone login. That's how we register it, because many people don't like to type in. So we realized that by typing, some people might just tweet out from your app, but they already have like a social media account. They can easily use Facebook, or they can use their mobile phone or Google email just to log into the platform. But then it's not somehow free, sort of, because what we did is like to make money out of the platform. We're charging very little, to encourage, because it's new. So to encourage many users to use the platform, because it's something that they need. Because if you want to pass exams, especially in the Gambia here, you need to practice for exams. So these past questions is something that they normally bring in exams. So we charge them like some sort of quote for, like, I would say $2. Let me say, so for instance, $2. So basically, with that $2, if you look at the fintech in the Gambia, it's still, I would say, it's still on its infant level. So, however, what we realized was we already used to entering access code. So that's what we just added on the platform. So if you register with the version 1, if you register, it will prompt you to enter the activation code from either from the school or bank, an MOU, which is Access Bank. So it's just $2. So you purchase it and it will be activated for you for 1 year. So once the activation is finished, it will prompt you to buy. Before the activation finishes, like a month, so it will prompt you that your activation is about to end, 7 days and 5 days. If you buy the activation, you enter the activation. But on the version 2, we already working with AfriMoney and Q-Money to make sure the API is already integrated on the platform, wherein now they can use their simple phone number, because their mobile phone, just to make a purchase of this access code. But we want to use SMS, premium SMS, because we know that most of the students don't use banking details. So we want to use premium SMS, just like how we have it in the Gambia here. If you want to buy energy, you can use your mobile phone, any phone, and you can purchase the login that you want to integrate with.
Now, not to cut you off, did you have a question that we could help you with?
Yes. In terms of security, like how you can consider on making especially if you're growing as a startup and you're about to cross borders with your application, because mobile application has no boundaries. So when crossing borders, so what are the things that you might easily integrate to make your system very secure?
Okay, so first you gotta look at, let's kind of go through the like top-down approach. You gotta look at make sure there's all your governance and your policies are set up. So as your team, as your consultants, as your developers, you have acceptable use policies, you have employee contractor agreements, NDAs, non-compete, like all that set up first. Because as you develop, you're going to scale your business, right? And as you scale your business, you're going to need to build out your team. So you're going to need to make sure that's all in place. Then you're going to have, your software development life cycle as well as your coding practices. Probably you have them in place. And again, talking high level, not knowing your business, you're going to have to, like, say, for example, OWASP, how they have secure practices of coding. If you're following that and making sure you're following change management and integration processes that, release processes, that what happens is when you make a change to your code, it's going through testing before released, right? And doing all that. So those are secure practices that then you can actually now set up as your guidelines when clients or partners or anyone comes on. You can tell them this is what you're doing. This is your best practice. This is your frameworks, right? Because that's what they're going to look for. And that's going to give you a secure business. Then you have to look at making sure your website has an SSL certificate and it's secure, right? So any data that's being transferred is always secure. You're going to have to look at if you're in a cloud storage, how are you securing the data in the cloud? Right? How are you locking down, how you're managing it, right? And then how are you logging and monitoring on-prem and cloud, your cloud environment ongoing, right? Are you doing any pen testing? Are you doing any vulnerability testing, right? To make sure these environments are secure, that you have your due diligence and baseline that can say, at least at this point, we know we're, somewhat secure. And then what happens, you're going to get a gap assessment, right? That says you're here, you need to be here. You need to work in between that line of what you need to implement on security and things you need to work on that are critical, intermediate, and low-hanging fruit. And I'll give you a low-hanging fruit would be like cybersecurity awareness training for your team. That would be low-hanging fruit. The cost of implementation is very low. The technology that you have to use to implement it is very easy, and to be able to get results quickly is fast, right? Within, a week, you can start to get results on how your team is doing and start working towards it, versus doing a massive implementation of SIM and SOC and things like that can take 90 days to 6 months to implement. So I know Kira I think he disconnected, but hopefully that answers the questions for other people that are listening.
And Brandon, you said a wealth of information over there, in the sense, hit all the keynotes and the sweet points, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I even want to take it down a step, if you will, or put a different context. Just like you were saying, right? People, processes, and technology. I mean, people, when you talk people, who are your people in your business, whether it be your customers or your own employees or your clients, like you were saying. And what are they accessing? What kind of processes are they using? Are they using a cell phone app to access what? Right? All these different steps in your thing, and then the technology, just like you said, Brandon. I mean, we have all the, what kind of data are they accessing? Is this data free for all, one for all? Is there any risks? I mean, really, the basic questions about all your people, process, technology, assets. Fundamental 101, right? Even in the DoD, we have the same spin. What are we protecting? I mean. And you just said it, Brandon. I mean, you have, and for when it comes to people, you give an example of AUPs, which is authorized user policies or whatnot. Like, let's just say, for example, hey, Saran, you want to, you want an account on this computer. I'm not just going to give you a straight up account. No, I'm going to make sure you agree to certain rules of the game, right? Like, you can't just come in and watch anything and everything on the computer, for example. Yeah, you're right. I mean, spot on.
Right.
Awesome.
Just the three basic questions.
We have Afro. He's got his hand up for a while.
Yeah. Now let's do it. Yep.
Oh yeah. Hello, Ahmed. Feel free. Introduce yourselves and Kara. I think you dropped out, so don't worry. When you watch the recording, you'll be able to get the full answer plus some extra on top. So if you have another question, however, we're allowing Ahmed to go ahead and ask his question after introducing himself, you can certainly come back and we'll continue, surely.
Hello.
So go ahead, Ahmad.
Hello, good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, my mic is it. I'm Ahmad MC, the founder of AfroGreen. AfroGreen is an e-commerce business that sells agricultural produce.
Okay.
So the concept behind the business idea is to create markets for farmers, especially the rural farmers, because in the Gambia here we experience a lot of post-harvest loss due to lack of enough storage facilities and processing facilities. So we came up with this idea to create a market for rural farmers. Due to infrastructural problem also, they struggle a lot to get their products to the market. So we partner with them to sell their products on the platform.
Okay, so just a quick question. What products are you selling to farmers?
It's the agricultural products, the vegetables, you have poultry products,
okay,
and many other garden produce, yeah.
Okay, so not equipment, right? Not like farming equipment?
No, farm produce.
I think maybe there's probably a misunderstanding. He's actually getting products from the farmers and getting them to the users, the customers, consumers. Because
so like a farmer's
as
market
he said,
online, right? Is that what I'm
yeah,
understanding? A farmer's
yeah,
market
exactly.
online?
Yeah, because one of the problems, you know, in Gambia, if you go up to the villages, transportation to the cities is a bit more of a challenge. You know, so he's bridging that gap by helping these farmers sell their produce, you know, in the city, in the urban area, which is where it would probably be more commercial than if it's stuck in the village, which has less population, because more than half the population is in the urban areas of in a country. Imagine, yeah. So that's I think that's what he was trying to explain. So Ahmad, I think I'll allow you to ask your question. I'll allow him. Huh?
Well, I mean, his volume is very low. If you can type it as well in the chat.
Oh yeah. Oh sure. Yeah, Ahmad, if you can type your question, that would be good. Or if as well as say it if you want.
Yeah, because we'll read it back.
Yeah, my question would be, as an e-commerce business, we have a website. So when it comes to security, what are the features that we need on our site to keep our website secure? That's one of the most important things that we would want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So website and security. Okay. Now, Vivek, did you want to answer?
Yeah, I was going to ask primarily. So where are you hosting this website, or if that's even a like who built this website, or who's designing this website? How many people are involved in this process? Can you throw some rough idea?
Yeah, we are a team. I'm not a developer, but I have my partners. Two of my partners, they all do computer science, so they are the ones who develop this site using WordPress. Yeah.
And where are they hosting it? Is it?
We're hosting with Memsilo, something like MEMESILO.
Okay. So it's like a small business hosting service, or like somewhere up in the cloud, quote unquote, like in the bigger market. So you said Memsilo, right?
Business.
Okay, nice. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but again, the web security, right? You're talking about different. What is your infrastructure? What if you're hosting your website on a set of servers or on a network, right? You want to know what your assets are, what network devices you have on that network that's hosting your website. Make sure you know who your developers are, which I know you do, and we're qualified developers, no doubt. But that's your people aspect of the concept, right? And then you got your network devices, your routers, your firewalls. Hopefully you have firewalls in place, right? And then your servers, what kind of, are they locked down? Whatever is hosting that website, right? If it's on a server rack or a cloud, make sure that you have that security in place, whether it be digital certificates, so that you basically have your secure logins, like HTTPS essentially. And also, how do you log into that website? Is that a free access, or do you have login mechanisms for those websites? So on and so forth. Like, once again, I keep hitting that basic question, right? People, process, technology, and just put question mark in front of each, and then figure out like who are your people involved. Make sure everything is check the blocks there. Your processes. Make sure you check the block there, and then the technology involved. Go for it, Brandon, if you have any.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper just because you're focused on websites. So first and foremost, you got to look at your hosting plan, right? Are you on a shared hosting, or are you on a virtual private server? Right? If you're on a shared hosting plan, then you got to see who's on the actual server with you, because that server, it can be compromised by any of the residents on that server, not you. So you could be secure, but they're not. And if they get hacked, because you're on that server, you can be compromised as well. So as you build out, you want to be on your own virtual private server that you're isolated to your own, infrastructure, right? And this is when you call it infrastructure as a service. From what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, this was your own, like you got a hosting company hosting you. So I would look at that first, right? Second is what Vivek was saying was, people and the code. I would do a pen test. I would do a pen test right now on your actual website and see what can, like, vulnerability test, penetration test, right? Have that application pen test done to see where your gaps are, where your vulnerabilities on your website is. Now, you mentioned WordPress. I put a link in the actual chat, Source Defense. They do third-party plugin review and widgets and themes. Something you would like to, review just to see if there's any open holes, right? Or vulnerabilities in any of those plugins and themes that you're using right now for your website, because WordPress is generally built on the platform of, the code on top of a theme, on top of plugins and widgets, right? So you want to make sure those plugins and widgets, there's no vulnerabilities from that, because they've developed with accessibility and availability on that, but not security. So it's like you can do all those things. You can name a remote. You can set up a calendar. You can set up, remote login, authentication. You can have client lists. You can do all that great stuff. But how secure is it? Right? And that's where you want to look at your security. So those are some first points I would start out with to really dive deep into your website to see, as soon as you do that, where do you sit on your baseline right now, and where do you need to be? Right? I'm going to review that constantly, because a lot of people, it's a starting point. Right? You got to know where you are right now currently in your security posture to know where you need to go. All right. So what you're saying with the website, that's how I would evaluate it right now, to give you a really understanding of the snapshot of what your security posture is for your website.
And just my example, right? If I have a website on my personal computer, right? When I say website, or hosting a site on my personal, server or personal computer, whatnot, and I'm not going to open that server or that hosting service to everything and anything. It's only web service, right? That's it. I'm going to try and lock it down as much. Make sure like other services are not provided from that server except the web. So again, what are you targeting? What are your assets? So spot on. Brandon hit all the sweet spots about the specifics, but
Did you have any more questions? Did that help? Okay, perfect, awesome. Yeah, that. Like I said, call to action right now for you. Get a team to do an external pen test, review that, have your code reviewed, right? Make sure you do that. Use that site to scan your actual current WordPress installation and all the plugins and third party, and that's going to give you your baseline. And then have a conversation with your hosting company to see if you're on shared hosting, right? And if you are, look at transferring over to a VPS to kind of get you into your own isolated.
Well noted.
This is brilliant.
Yeah, I just how do you say reverberated research. I don't know what do we call it on the write up, so you guys can see it later. You know, in case.
Definitely. That is brilliant. I think we have Malik's hand raised.
Yeah.
Malik, feel free.
Yeah. So this question is more for Vivek and Brandon. So think of this. I'm a small business.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me and a partner.
Okay.
We have no idea about technology. Yes, we have a website on WordPress. We have, like, these guys, the question that they're asking. Maybe top 3 points for somebody that had, like, you know, Vivek, you'd say need a security team. I cannot afford a security team. I don't know where to begin. So just give me the ABC, the elementary steps that I need to take to start looking at my security posture.
What website do you have?
I don't have
Malik?
resources. No, I'm asking this. I'm asking this question for you to kind of frame this.
I know, but I need to know what type of website you have. Is it e-commerce? Is it just information?
Yeah, let's say e-commerce, for example,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, for example, the Afro Greens website. But those, let's say it's 2 of them. They don't have any resources. They can hire, you know, a security team. What is the elementary answer to them to kind of get started in getting their security going, to, you know, from really at a really low level, to get, because I think that's the issue. We're talking about the people, process, and technology. Forget the technology. Let's talk about the people, right? Before we kind of go into that, I think a lot of these small startups, they just don't know where to begin. So you guys as professionals, like, give me that baby step of, okay, this is what you need to do. That way, like a takeaway for them, that after this call, these are the 3 things that you need to do to kind of get going. And then I guess from there, maybe we'll have another follow-up call with cybersecurity, and then they can go through that. But I think just from a the simplest answer for them to say, okay, I took away this from this call, and this is what I need to do after this call to really get the process going. And I have no money. I have no knowledge of technology. I just need to know what I need to do after here to kind of get my stuff going.
Okay, so let me kind of give you some context on that first. To say, like, hey, any business owner, here's what you need to do. That's like me telling you, Malik, I need you to build me a house. Can you build me a house? Okay, well, how many rooms, what size, what plumbing, what type of electricity? Just go build me a house. You're going to have so many questions as an individual business owner. That's why the question that I asked for, answered for Afro Green was very specific on 3 steps, right? Check with the hosting company, make sure you're not on shared hosting, that you have your own VPS. Second, get your pen testing done, right? Have someone outside that knows how to do application pen testing, because the business owner is not going to be able to do it. I'm going to tell you right now, no matter how much YouTube videos, unless he's in pen testing, there's going to be things that he's going to miss, right? And then next, I gave the resource because we knew it was WordPress. That's why I gave that source defense, that it can scan the website on plugins and widgets, and that each instance is going to be unique and different to the business owner, right? And the business itself, right? To tell you if you have PCI compliance, if it's e-commerce, there's a whole bunch of different controls that come along with that. Secure logging monitoring, encryption, cybersecurity awareness training, right? Ongoing management, all these different things. And I agree with you. We don't want to overload people. We're trying to give very simplistic things that, like Afro Green, he literally now has a checklist. Check with my hosting company, go get a pen test done, use that website. 3 things I can do, action items. I can walk away from this call. He can review the call back and just go check. Right. So to answer that question for you, Malik, very simplistically, they need, if it's a new business owner starting up, they have to look at security practices, whatever that means. Then they have to understand their business. And this is where we have solo entrepreneurs that might be starting up that really don't understand best business practices because they have a passion, but they have to now just go through this hockey stick of business, right? Financial statements, risks, legalities, contracts, you name it. Now it's like this huge download, but hey, I just want to sell, produce. I want to sell produce to people that are in need of it. I'm here. I have access to farmers. I want to sell produce to people that can't get access to it. I just want to make it simple, but as it starts to develop out, then the business wraps around it of legalities, risks, responsibility, due diligence, due care. So when you're looking at that as a simplistic business, it starts to evolve the more technology you put in place. That's why Vivek is so right. People, process, technology. The more technology you put in place, the more process you need, the more you have to monitor your people. And so it starts this circle that you go through to just identify people. You now leave yourself a gap and basically at risk because you don't have the process and the technology managed. That's why it's this ongoing people, process, technology, people, process, technology. It's a circle that you keep going through as a business owner, identifying the risk. And now let's put an owner's hat on, and I'll do that for you, right? My responsibility is to make profits and revenue and protect it. Other than that, everything else, will be managed. But that's my fiscal responsibility as a CEO of a company, is to make revenue. How do I make revenue? My sales, my service products, whatever that may be, reducing my costs, right? Making sure my risks are limited, right? So I'm not paying a lot of legal fees and impact and compromises. I'm going to reduce my risk, and then as I get financial investment and other people coming in, I want to protect their investment too. So now on that CEO hat, I have to do that as well, protecting their financial aspects. So single owner, two type owner. Your responsibility right now is to make profits, right, and protect them. Then to build out the actual service delivery and the actual product and service, which then becomes people, process, and technology. Now, if you do it with pen and paper and there's no technology involved, perfect. But as soon as you get a website, as soon as you get, bookkeeping, supply chain management, now the technology has to be secure. You have to think about it. So I know that was a longer kind of soapbox answer, but I want to give you guys value to understand it's not just, hey, I went and registered my business, I put my shingles on the door and yay, I'm ready to go. Now there starts to become this fiscal responsibility and fiduciary responsibility that now is weighed on the CEO, that now you have to look at these things. And these things that we're talking about, the security aspects, the business aspects, the risk, is something that a lot of business owners can't take on themselves.
Absolutely, Malik. I mean, Brandon, but also to add, I guess I'm going to give the smaller subset of the answers here. No, I'm just kidding. But just like you were saying, people, process, and technology. Like what your website is being hosted somewhere, right? In a company or a small organization or whatnot. Do you know what that organization has? What are the assets, right? Whether it be people, whether it be technology, or whether it be processes. So what are your assets? That's like the basic 101, like almost like 5 W's, right? Like I'm going to the store. You may ask me the question, where are you going, Vivek? I'm driving in a car. Like I'm going somewhere. So, all those basic questions, like how are you going to the store in a car? Is that car secure? Does it have tires? Yeah, of course. Otherwise, I'm not going to be driving that. Things of that nature, like the basic fundamentals. So I don't mean to make this any more complicated by the way I'm saying it. I'm just trying to say, like, ask the basic questions. Like, we all know, I know this, we all know that a website is HTTPS, it means it's secure. Not necessarily. There's a lot of layers to the onion over here. Just because a website is HTTPS or claims to be when you type it in your browser, it could be a bad, certificate, or you may have issues with that. So then Brandon was saying, there's a lot of technology that come into play.
Well, you got the forms, right? You can do a SQL injection on the forms, right?
Yep.
Right, something along that line. You might have a secure certificate on the URL, but then the code's not secure. So there's many, like Vic is saying, there's many factors to it just to kind of say, just do this. Like, especially when you're looking at a website, you're looking in the sense of, are you doing OWASP best practice in security, software development lifecycle? Are you using that? I don't know. We got a WordPress site and we did that. Well, there's another thing, check, right? So it starts to become these controls of checklists you start to put in place, that having a security consultant or professional sit down with you and just go over it makes a world of difference, drives on a roadmap versus what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. Falling in that spot where you don't know what you don't know, and all of a sudden going, oh my God, we got compromised, we got hacked because we didn't know, right? So think of it in that line, and that's why we're here today to answer those specific questions to bridge those gaps.
Right on, spot on. Yeah.
Let's say I want Sarine to build me a website tomorrow morning. I'll be like, hey, go for it. I'm not going to take it at, you know, I got to make sure Sarayan is who he is. And I know Sarayan a little bit better than I know, you know.
I think Joseph has a question.
Yeah. Joseph, floor is yours.
Hello. Yeah, I think this was a very wonderful discussion. Okay. Myself, in my own case, I have like a cloud server. Which of course the system is actually for mass communication. So I have about 3 layers of security. So I implemented some security at the PBX level and 2 at the server level, and then at the server level. By that I mean like for instance, blocking one request, firewall and the like, and then also have the third layer, which is at the web application level, because there's also a web application linked to it. So with the web application, I have like a web application firewall. Try to write MySQL query, MySQL query that are not vulnerable to SQL injection. So at this server level, so I actually have series of questions, but let me start with this one. At the server level, I'm actually using like a network intrusion detection system, which is called SNOT, SNORT. But then this SNOT I read, and it's like it can also act as not just a detection system, but also but it can also block intruders. So I just wanted to ask if you have any recommendation of a very good network intrusion detection system, detection and prevention system that's really very good. And maybe if you've used SNOT, whether SNOT is good or not, because this is the one I'm actually using. And then also maybe let me just give 2 questions and then hold on for now. The 2 most important one. The second important question I have here is about data protection, because with most clients are really very curious and very concerned about data protection, and they want to make sure that their data is very much protected. So at the database level, I'm actually using ASE, that's advanced standard encryption for MySQL. Because MySQL database, I'm using advanced standard encryption for MySQL database and then this one actually kind of like use a key for you to encrypt the data in the database, and without this key, you cannot actually you can actually see or decrypt the data. So I just wanted your advice on this, whether this were a very good practice or are there any other encryption mechanism that are better for database. In this case, I'm using MySQL database.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's I'm going to go through the SIM first, and then get Vivek kind of to chime into the coding, the SQL a little bit better, because that's kind of more his sweet spot. But when you have a SIM, doesn't SIM for the overall IDS, NDS, kind of all the network detection, the intrusion detection, local, do you have a log monitoring system that you're monitoring, right? That's the key thing for intrusion detection. A lot of people get these technologies set up, but they're not watching the logs, they're not watching the events, and they haven't tuned it for false positives and false negatives. So what happens? They go, yeah, I've got this, this SIM that's detecting everything. Great. Who's watching it? Huh? Who's watching the logs? Who's watching the events coming in? Who's watching at 2 a.m. in the morning? If you also now DOS attack happens or someone tries to infiltrate your system, who's watching to see those infiltrations? A lot of people, smaller companies, don't have those in place. So you have to look at how are you tuning your system and how are you monitoring it through it. Because if you have the system in place, you're not monitoring it, you basically have an open door. Right? Literally is, because they can get in at 1 o'clock in the morning, and guys are smart enough right now. They'll get in, they can infiltrate it, and they can delete your logs or shut off the monitoring. And now they can exfiltrate your whole, system without you knowing, because they're already in, right? But you got to have someone monitoring that kind of goes, something happened here. There was a lot of irregular traffic at this point. Now we have to investigate. That's what the value of a SIM is. Doesn't matter which one, if it's Rapid7, Q Radar, Secure Onyx, doesn't matter. It's how you use the tool, right? So that's a key thing. Now, when it comes to SQL, Vivek, did you have any insight on that?
No, I mean, honestly, I was saying, I think, Joseph, you're super technical on a lot of the stuff that you already have. I mean, so you might, but I think from best practices I'm reading, AES is the advanced encryption services, the better ones for your databases. So as long as you have some flavor of AES or something compatible, like a strong encryption algorithm, I mean, I can't, tell you any better answer on that. And spot on. I think I kind of started this. I don't know if you guys heard me saying PCCs and PCIs. It's a kind of like a acronym we use in the DoD and I'm giving that lens, if you will, called pre-combat checks and pre-combat inspections / It's actually a 2-word that goes in one word. And what it means, so pre-combat as in not necessarily going to war per se, but let's say I'm going from point A to point B, right? Movement. Checks is to make sure you have, just like Brandon was saying, you have everything. Like you have the Q Radar, or you have the SolarWinds, or you have the tools in place. That's your checks. All right, check the blocks. Saran is right here in this chat. But is he paying attention? That's the inspection part. I'm kidding, Saran. But PCIs is inspection. So make sure you're inspecting what you're checking or what you have, So check is to have the stuff. Inspecting is to inspect. So if you're not inspecting, you're not monitoring logs, you can have all the cool tools in place. What's the point, right? Yeah, spot on, Brandon.
Exactly. And I think, Joseph, talking about going back into your SQL, not knowing how your SQL server is set up, make sure the data at rest and data in motion is actually secure too, right? Because in a SQL server, when you have database and you have, different instances on that, you want to make sure at rest that it's in the database, that's secure, right? The data is there. And then depending on the connections that you have where it's stored, and then the data in motion. Now, like I said, not knowing your configuration and setup, just validate that, because if you have the level of encryption, you want to make sure it's not just on data in motion, but it's not in data at rest.
Okay, thank you. And okay, your data in motion and data at rest. Okay, I'll check that data in motion, data. Okay, and in terms of monitoring, like I'm using Node, but I'll be honest, I haven't started the monitoring yet. But then what the monitoring I'm trying to implement is actually to do an email notification. Like with Node, it has a whole lot of rules that I can activate, and then if these rules are activated, then and then if there's any detection, and then normally the log is being triggered. So in terms of monitoring, I know there are different ways of monitoring, but the one that I actually have in mind is to do an email notification, like when a notification alert pop up, then like the notification is sent to me through email. So this actually what I have in mind.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing when you're a single or small team, 10 people or less, having email notifications, but you got to make sure someone's monitoring it. And even if it's on like a rotational shift where, hey, this week you're monitoring, next week your colleague's monitoring, next week someone else is. Because what happens is that if it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're sleeping, and they have from 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the morning to the hackers have to work, that's 4 hours of them working on your system.
Yeah. That's pretty bad, yeah.
Right, and that's why you have a lot of the mid-sized companies and larger organizations might have an MSSP, a managed SOC that does it, because they just don't have the resources to do that. Now, like I said, we're having a discussion right now for startup companies. You guys are just kind of maybe single owner, small teams. You might have to say, hey, John, you're our IT guy, and guess what? You're the guy on the call. You're the guy monitoring this. And if there's alerts happen, you see in the morning, and I would set the alerts to do 2 things: send them a copy and send you a copy as the owner of the company. So what happens, you can go through the logs and then review and debrief with the IT guy saying, okay, 2 o'clock, there was alert. What happened? Debrief me, let me know.
Yeah, and thanks very much. Well noted.
Awesome. And then I think we had another question that came in from iTag. I have a question, but it's more of personal data protection. Most websites request you to log in with your Google credentials. As a user, how do you know which websites are secure enough to grant access? What do you think, Vivek?
So you're saying you have of course you log in with Google credentials, right?
So
and
Google, they basically set up the website for Google authentication.
Yep.
So if you have your Facebook account, if you have your Google account, or you can use your email or password, and then you click on Google because I'm going to use my email. So is that secure, Vivek?
Yeah. So using Google is not a bad thing as far as like already having the technology in place, right? So now you don't have to, especially if you're starting small, you don't want to recreate all these authentication mechanisms or identity providers service, if you will, right? So great idea using Google, but you're talking about is using Google to log in secure? Well, I want to lean on saying there is some aspect of, I mean, Google is pretty reliable. It's up there in the IL level. So when I say that in the sense, Google is
hold on,
very
Vivek.
compliant.
I'm going to pause you out there for a second.
Go ahead.
Remember, they're saying not using Google. They're saying, Vivek, you have a Gmail account. You're going to log into Brandon's, farming company, with your Google authentication, providing that security of your credentials on my website. Is that good practice?
Okay, so again, I see your point. So you're saying if I'm storing my Google credentials on your, on your side of the house, well, hopefully I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not sure if I don't know if Google actually does that, but if it does, then yeah, that's not a good thing. Obviously, you want to minimize storing people's credentials onto your website or on your servers, right? All you want to do is authentication. Just make sure they come in, open the gate, have the service, and go back. But don't store anything from other people's credentials on your network, because you're using Google as an authentication service, right?
I'm gonna go a different route to that.
Sure.
I would say the more you share out your credentials, even through API, the more exposure you have, right? Hackers want to do is, most people have end users, not you guys and more security that are using LastPass and multiple accounts. Most people try to use one username and password across their whole portfolio. Bank account, Gmail, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, TikTok, Instagram, all is my name at gmail.com, password 12345, and they try to use it everywhere. What happens is, if one of those sites get compromised, they can walk through your whole internet profile, right? So best practices, if you don't know the site and you're not comfortable with it, set up a unique username and password. Because Eventbrite, and I'll use that one as an example, that's highly been compromised, right? Anytime I've gone to doing a dark web search on accounts that have been compromised, Eventbrite keeps coming up that executives that go to events like this have been using their business username and passwords to log into Eventbrite to authenticate to the actual event. So now that I have, if I'm a hacker and I go buy that list, I have access to their username and password for their company account. So think about that. Brandon at google.com. I work at Google. My password 12345. I put that in Eventbrite. You compromise Eventbrite. Now you can go, hey, I have Brandon's Google authentication. His account at work. Here's his email address. I'm gonna type his password, full access to his account. That's why it's, for events, social media, things that are very kind of generic and networking, I always recommend use a unique account. Have a dummy Gmail account, just a dummy one, right? That spam goes there. You sign up for flyers, stores and shopping, things you kind of do online. That's your dummy account. Because if it ever gets compromised, who really cares? Doesn't really matter. What are they really going to get? That you shop at Foot Locker, you bought groceries online, and these companies don't save your credit card. So you just do that. Doesn't really matter. Don't try to give you like true high level. And this is like least privilege rules, right? They have least privilege to the least amount of information and authentication. The ones that I have my bank account, and maybe I have Amazon, maybe I have my telecommunications, all are separate accounts, all with complex username and passwords and different email addresses, right? To make sure if they compromise one, they can't go across my whole profile. Yeah, that's best practice when you're looking at personal security.
I was just giving a classic example just before you guys all showed up. The fact that I have 3 different Gmail accounts myself, or Google accounts, aka, And two of them are one of them is my private account, right? My personal account that I use for exchanging emails with Saran and Brandon. But the other two, even though they are official accounts, they're tied to Gmail, but they're not for my personal use. They're just solely for official use. So like you were saying, so if any one of those accounts are compromised, it's only that account that's being compromised. So you're spot on. I mean, I just wasn't sure if I know we're supposed to have reliable authentication services in play, and I know Google is one of the bigger players. So I didn't know if they do send these passwords over the APIs. But you're right, as far as usernames, you're spot on too. You don't want to send.
Well, this is the thing, Vivek. Look at it. It's an API, right? So the API ever gets compromised, they're able to compromise the code, and the encryption key is there, the public keys on the other side, and they're able to get that. Now they're under, decrypt all the username and passwords for Google, right? That are authenticating on maybe, and not saying that they're not trying to do their best practice, but just maybe that website got compromised. Maybe they have something, an open hole. Maybe their code's not, where it should be, and they get compromised, and then you get a call saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, your account's been compromised. Can you reset your password, please?" Well, that password, like we talked, that username and passwords across all different accounts, including your email, where you have personal email and things like that. Now what happens? Now you're like, "Oh crap, what did they get access to?"
But like you said, once the account is compromised, you get a whole suite of issues there, because you now know everything about them, right? Quote unquote.
And then add on a best practice, two-factor authentication. Set up two-factor authentication anytime you're logging into a website, authenticate, just because it adds that level of defense and depth of security. So password, some sort of two-factor authentication, something you are, something you have, something right? To add that layer of complexity, because if they get your password, they still have to try to breach the two-factor authentication. Not impossible, but it's a lot harder. So we've answered quite a bit. How are you looking, sir? How's this going?
I'm loving it. Hey. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I'm loving it. Look at the response there from the iTech says, "Wow. Thank you. People used to tell me just look for the lock icon besides the HTTP." Oh.
Which is not bad. That's one, you should have your own checklist. That's one thing. Okay, they have a secure site, at least in that. Step 2, how am I authenticating? Is it my own username and password off a generic account? Step 3, are they talking about their security? So it's now up to the user to be proactive, right, in their security practices. And I'm going to tell this right now, getting on my own little soapbox here, don't rely on security from other companies, right? Don't rely on that. Rely on your own best practice for security and your own due diligence, right? Don't say, okay, well, they're a big company, they should be secure. Large organizations, do a Google search. How many companies get compromised that are big conglomerate companies, get hacked and lose, millions of records of data. So anyone can be hacked. So it's up to us to do our own due diligence and best practices.
Thanks a lot.
I was just throwing an analogy out there, Brandon, and I think you're spot on that. I think ITAG secretary was saying, yeah, if you see the lock, you're secure. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good identifier, right? But then visually speaking, right? I saw a lock, but who's giving you that lock, right? Now it's almost like, think about it when you jump in your car. I mean, your car, if the guy gives you the car keys to drive your car, but then he has a spare key, really secure, you know what I mean? So no, I got you though, for the most. So make sure you're getting reliable locks, whether it be VeriSign or I forget the name of so many companies, right? Digital, whatever, a lot of certificate authorities that make your website secure.
Yeah, DigiCert.
DigiCert, yeah. Common ones out there.
We got a question from Afro Green, from Ahmad.
Yeah, thank you. I'm learning a lot of new things, and I'm sure we will implement them, inshallah. I want to know, as an e-commerce business, because we intend to receive payments online, like people will be paying on our website. What are some of the additional features that we need before putting that thing on our website, like receiving payment like through PayPal or even here we have this Q money thing that we are working on to integrate on our side. What are some of the securities that we have to consider when it comes to online payments?
So are you providing your clients online statements on your website?
No, they're currently the
Yep.
payment system, you know, for certain e-commerce businesses in Gambia is through pay on delivery. So basically, they take a big risk by purchasing the order, delivering it, and then hoping that someone would be honest enough to pay you once you deliver the goods. You know, so now some of the other websites, due to some advances in payment technology, now some options are opening up. So some telecom companies, you know, providing what is called, you know, they brand their own ways of getting credit. So people can buy, I guess you could call it like AT&T money, for example, or Verizon money. So in Gambia, they have Q Money, which is from QCell. They have Afri Money from AfriCell, these telecom providers where you buy credit, and that is money that you can use to pay other people, and they can take it out of their account. Or, you know, you do bank deposits and so on. So those are, so he's trying to say, okay, now if we want to integrate these types of payments, instead of just taking cash for orders, what are some of the extra added security features that we should be looking at, you know, in order to protect the people's data and also to protect the website?
Well, I mean, when you're looking at e-commerce, I mean, the first thing you have to understand is the whole supply chain, right? From start to finish, from clients' information to like the actual payment system and portal to actually now what you have a responsibility is stored on your actual website. Because a lot of times when you look at these payment portals, the transaction notification and ID is authenticated across from the payment, you know, portal to you. So you don't really see a lot of that other information. It's actually gone through like PayPal. I'm going to use that as an example because a lot of people know that PayPal does a lot of the financial transactions, but the actual transaction that's completion and the reference number, that's the only thing you really see, right? Because you get a notification. So you have to look at and understand what that process is from start to finish, from client to the payment processor to yourself. Now, if you between the payment processor and yourself, if you're storing data locally, you got to look at encryption. You got to look at encryption in motion from the payment processor to you, making sure that, you know, data is secure. And then you got to look at how you storing that data once it's actually in your server, your bookkeeping, your accounting. How are you securing that? Now, if you don't collect information going the other way and it's a payment processor, you have to look at what's their security measures. And you have to ask them hard questions. Do you encrypt the data? How do you store it? How do you back it up? Right? What happens if you do get breached? What's your liability and risk? Right? What do you do to the clients and how do you help protect them? That should be your checkbox that you're going out and they go, well, we don't know. We just do this. Now you have to be concerned. And then what happens, you have to have a terms of service agreement on your website, letting know that the clients that use your service, here's the risks and the liability and responsibility. Who is that? You don't take responsibility if, say, the data is stored with the payment processor. In the terms of service, you have to read the directive responsibilities on the payment processor. And when they use your service, they're validating the payment processor is the person that is taking responsibility, not you as the company and organization. So you have to have that in your terms of service. This is where we get into business practice and legalities. It helps to reduce your risk, right? Because when they go back and go, Brandon, you got, you know, my credit card got compromised or my bank account got compromised. Well, I didn't have access to secure it. It wasn't me, it was the payment processor. But you have to have that in your terms of service. Other than that, then you are liable, right? Because you didn't state it out. Because remember, it's the user's responsibility to read and validate the terms of service. And that's a lot of times what you'll have on websites. They'll say before you register your account, you have to read this long legal document and validate you acknowledge that. Well, that's part of your terms of service.
Yeah, I mean, I think even service level, all these agreement documents we have, right, going by different names. I mean, service level agreements. If you have a third-party payment processing system, what kind of service are they giving you? Dotted lines, hey, this is my expectations. This is what I'm getting, and if so and so thing happens, I mean, cover your own behind. Excuse my French.
CYA, right?
Yeah, exactly.
CYA.
And I think case in point is Joseph on the chat asked if one of those. I never heard of it, but it's called Let's Encrypt, I guess. It's a certificate authority. I'm just looked it up. First time, I think it's a non-profit, right? So again, what kind of agreement levels you have with them? Like, did you just go and download that certificate and just sign up for them? When you signed up for that certificate service, I'm sure there was some terms and conditions, just like Brandon was saying, so hey, we're a non-profit, so at your own will, right? No, that you gotta make sure what you're getting into or signing into.
Exactly.
That's a really promising catch,
Yeah, that's really, really important. Ahmed, I hope that answers your question.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Brandon, I rewrote what you were saying in the chat. So not quite sure. Did I write down your steps correctly? Just wanted you to double check on that. Your 3 steps that you were talking about before. So just kind of rewrote it, checking the host to see whether they're on a shared or private server.
Yep.
Taking a pen test.
And then use shared web.
Use the shared website for the holes, right? To check the holes.
For sure. Yeah, well, that one specific is not just the holes, but it's to check your WordPress, your plugins, any third-party implementation, right? Just to kind of give that more specific. It's not going to validate your website. It's checking for third-party widgets, plugins, themes that have been already pre-coded.
Right. So it'll basically check the stack, see where.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
If I'm coming to Brandon's house, or aka area of operations, not necessarily house, so business, and Brandon is providing me service of a car mechanic, okay, just hypothetically, right? And I go to and then I see, I don't know, Brandon selling goods on the side like cologne and perfume and whatnot. I'm like, wait, which is your business here, Brandon? I'm not sure. I mean, now you start doubting, right? Is he a car mechanic, or is he a cologne salesman, or is he a mix of both? And then you start questioning your, who's providing you what kind of service. So just make sure, same thing with the websites, or, if your website is open to other services that need not be there, so lock them down, just like Brandon was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you advise if you were on WordPress? Would you advise then perhaps building your own, using your own code maybe to create your website versus using third-party themes and widgets and such? Is that what would be?
There's a lot of good widgets and themes. You just have to do your due diligence and research. And then because a lot of the widgets and themes are custom, designed, manufactured, once you get it into your system, because there's some playing with it. It's not plug and play. A lot of times it's not, hey, I got this in, all of a sudden I put it in, now it works perfectly, it fits, right colors, theme, right design, acts great on mobile, as well as Chrome and Safari browsers. There's sometimes some playing with the code that can open up vulnerabilities, right? So you want to make sure you're testing, and it makes these things are very, like when you look at the triad, the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are very accessible and available to help people build out really great websites. It's the integrity, the confidentiality. It's up for us as users to take that due diligence and review it, analyze the actual code, look at best practice, and then patch, update, and constantly test to make sure it's secure. Because anyone that's been on WordPress knows that WordPress always is coming out with updates. The plugins are always coming up with security updates, right? Daily, weekly, right? Depending on the vulnerability. And now you want to make sure that you're constantly, as you start storing records or data, now you want to make sure that you're testing to say, okay, I feel it's secure, but let me validate the security.
Yeah, I think you made a great point on updating and patching. That's like the basic 101, right? Like if you're, oftentimes you see that pop up on your computer screen, and if you're using a Microsoft computer, it tells you, hey, download this patch. It keeps, and how often do we turn it off, right? Because we just don't want to bother with it. No, let's get the patch going.
Right.
The basic 101 defense.
Updates, can't be bothered.
Updates are, as much as we love-hate relationship with updates, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm too lazy to update it right now. I don't want to shut the computer off and restart. Because a lot of times that's the thing, right, with these patches.
Oh, right. Wow.
Certified services. A lot of code, just like Brandon was saying, WordPress and all these, you can use third-party stuff. Just make sure you read the bottom line, because I'm sure where we grab these things, they have some kind of write-up. Hey, there may be some vulnerabilities with this thing, or they may not be, or this is the best. Read before you act. In the sense, because know what you're getting into.
That's right. That's correct. All right. Well, we got 5 minutes to 7:30. So thinking perhaps maybe we round it up. Normally I schedule for an hour to hour and a half. I don't want to keep people too long, so they can always come back. And one thing I do is I do invite panelists to future sessions. So you have a choice, if you're not busy, to stop by in another session and give some input, because next week we have cloud, then the week after that we have diversity and inclusion, and then we have fintech. So all security is present all over the place. As you can't run away from it. Everything, it's a basic need, a human need to be secure anyway. So it's Maslow's hierarchy. So now it's a basic tech need as well. We always want to feel secure in whatever we're doing. If we have some herdsmen that can guide the herd to the right path, that's always welcome. So I want to take the time really to thank you guys for sparing, using your time, your valuable time. Brandon, I know you have your Twitch, so if you share it, what I'll do is I'm gonna do a thank you email to all the participants. So I'll make sure I share your Twitch. If you also want to receive this video recording, I will share a link for you and Vivek if you're interested to review later on as well. As you can see, Brandon just shared his Twitch channel, which is all about it's called cyber insecurity, but it's really about cyber security. Okay, so
it's the reality about we really truly are insecure, right? And how we doing it. It's this evolution of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty neat. Nice. That's a nice way to put it. So certainly I'll be sharing that link as well, and to in the thank you email. And as I said, I'll invite you to future events if you have time to stop by, even for 5-10 minutes. You're always welcome. And we really thank you. I learned quite a bit too, because I got lazy over time. I know in the early, I think in 2001 too, in those days when people were more even careful with how they would share their data. I know, especially for me, during those days, I had a lot of dummy emails, because a lot of the things that you wanted access to, you would have to join some sites, and you probably wouldn't trust giving that site your real email. But as time went on, I have gotten a little lazy. So that's why I laughed a few times when Brandon was saying, yeah, you start getting so lazy, you start using your same username. I was laughing so hard. Oh my God, because even on nowadays, these authentications, as Menge was saying, these authentications are something that's really taken over, because it makes life so easy. If you're already logged on a device on some other platform, and this other platform says, hey, use this email, or use your Facebook, or use your Instagram, or use your Gmail, you're like, oh, well, let me just click it. It's just going to use my photo to log in. But yeah, really, I mean, as you said, if any one of those things get compromised, it's going to be a whole can of worms. So I guess I'll have to at least not be too lazy anymore and try to be a bit more secure. I mean, I do have so many emails, I can't remember some of them. Yeah, I've even lost some emails.
Well, that's why like tools like LastPass, right? You can use LastPass and different password managers to manage things like that.
Yeah, I use Chrome. How good is Chrome to manage passwords?
No.
No?
No. Well, because what happens is the Chrome can actually, the cookies are in the API can be compromised.
Okay. So
right.
So you would recommend migrating all the stored, maybe what about the keychain on the MacBook? That should be
that's better. Like when you're looking at levels of like not best practices, like having sticky notes around your computer, to like
see
the browsers, things along that line, storing
101.
the browsers, to like keychain management. Mac is better, higher level security, to like keychain, like our key password managers like LastPass and things along that line. The different levels of security, right? High, like low, medium, high, higher, right? We always recommend tools like LastPass is
it's more encrypted.
Well, it's encrypted. It's its own isolated application. You have to authenticate. There's generally 2-factor authentication to get into that, and then it adds the layer of complexity, right? And this is again back to defense in depth. The more stages or hops you put in between the layers of security, the harder it is for someone to compromise it.
Oh, Malik just shared something, Bitwarden.
Right.
That's big. Let me see. What is that? Is that also a password manager?
Could be. Yeah. Let's.
Oh, open source.
Interesting.
What do you think about that, Bitwarden? Have you heard of that?
I don't mind open source tools. You just have to look at, just keep your eye on if they, what are they doing with the open source code and things along that line? How are they securing that? And then, compromises. If it does, like LastPass got compromised years ago, right? It happens, right? But to what extent? And then, how are they is an easy change for a user like me that I just had to change my password, but my password and usernames I didn't get compromised? Or do I have to go through my whole chain of username and passwords and reset them?
I think this is saying you can transfer your browser passwords to that. I think I could do that. But it's so fun, I'd see how to use easy the UI is, because sometimes if I'm clicking on a site in Google and it's so easy to just have everything in Google, but yeah, if I have to move it out, if it makes it easy still, then I probably will stick. But if it's a bit too complicated, I might just slip back to old habits. I don't know. It's like being on a diet and avoiding that cake. And walking in the grocery store, first aisle you see is the bakery.
And Brandon hit the sweet spot about, as always, the open source, right? If something is open source, non-profit, and that's how a lot of people get their thing out there, right? The product out there, and yeah, you just make sure you read what what the checks and balances are. Like, a lot of times they'll have their source code and they'll say, hey, we passed this many vulnerabilities, or we updated our software 3 times, we found a glitch somewhere down the line, we improved on it. Now we got 300 more people working for us and we're getting there, because if it's a paid service, sure, you have a lot of terms and agreement. You're not going to just pay somebody for a product without signing some statement that tells you, all the things you're getting in black and white, quote unquote, right? You know what you're getting into when you pay for something, right? Well, as soon as it's free, it's a whole new ball game. So just make sure you know what you're getting into.
Right, but also they can get bought out, right? So all of a sudden, it's freeware, it's kind of open source, and then a company comes in and buys it for $1 billion, right? And now, how does that change the term of service? What type of security? Are they sharing your information? Like, it's all these different things. And they're not saying like these other companies are not. It's just you got to do your due diligence.
The key word there, due diligence.
So probably jumping ship at the end of the day if they change. I mean, but migration could be somewhat of a hassle as well, don't you think? Having to migrate.
It can be, but then you look at short-term pain for long-term, protection, security. Yeah, it might be an afternoon of you sitting there with your laptop going, copy, paste, password, or download. Okay, delete. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time. Maybe you have 30, 40 different user accounts and you're going through that. But then, you're done. You delete that account, you get it off that site, and then now you're secure. It might take you an afternoon, but it's worth the level of security. Now, kind of talking about this in context so you guys hear this. If it took you an afternoon to protect your accounts and you look at the actual reverse of you getting compromised, it can take up from 30 days, personal account, 30 days for 60 days for you to remediate and get back up and going if your account gets compromised. So think about that. A day, maybe an afternoon versus 60 days of dealing with service providers, bank accounts, and things like that, trying to get everything back up and going. It could take you 60 days to do that, right? Because you look at the bank, if your bank get compromised, your credit cards, it's anywhere from a 14 to 30-day investigation minimum. So if you lost $10,000 of your account and they lock your account, you could be 30 days without that account. So one afternoon, 30 days, what would I rather spend, right?
That's certainly true.
And I've had people call me. I've had people call me after they got breached saying, can you help me out? Can you help to streamline the process? No, where I can't. Like, where are you in that process? The bank's doing the investigation. If it's in the bank, they're doing their due diligence right now. You will get their money a lot, like 99% of the time, as long as you didn't do something unethically and whatever, and it's, you've been breached and they can validate the breach, you'll get your money back. It's just, you have to wait.
That's a key. That's exactly in some pseudo sense, the process term I was using, right? Like, you lost, something happened with your bank account, and now you call the bank and you say, hey, I need an overnight solution. No, bank have their own processes. You cannot interfere with them. They'll do their stuff. And like Brandon said, they'll make sure, they'll do the right thing and do due diligence and hope you get the right result at the end of the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatnot. That's process. You can't change it. And again, the more players you have in your business, like outside sources, inside sources, the more processes. You got to make sure you're in sync and know what each process, and people behind it and their policies and stuff like that.
And that's why I've heard from myself, from people that have gotten through personal compromises, I wish I would have. I wish I would have used LastPass, but it's after the fact they had that much pain, right? They now weren't able, their bank accounts were locked. They weren't able to pay their bills. Now the service providers are calling like, hey, you're late on your payments. Right, what's going on? And they're like, I just been compromised. Like, and it's like, you just have to wait. Some providers are more empathetic, and they'll go, we'll understand once it gets released, you're gonna have to pay maybe some late fees. But now you have to pay late fees. Like, you're like, oh my god, like I can't afford to keep doing that. Right. So this is why, look at the pain of not doing proper practices. Right. And I'm trying to help you guys to see the pain from the other side. And a lot of people are like, it's not going to happen to me. And then it does. And trust me, you hear the, oh shit, I wish I would have done this.
Spot on. I mean,
thanks a lot. I think Malik's typing something. Let's see what he has to say, and then we'll give you guys the floor so you can close up. And then, as I said, we'll all keep in touch and continue the conversation. I'm thinking we could probably schedule a part 2. If at all there's any free, Saturday coming up, not too distant, future. But I'll let you guys know, we go from there. I think Malik said another good resource to get started with assessing your environments is to leverage the CIS controls. You can use this free self-assessment tool.
There's CIS, there's NIST, there's a great ones, and it's an awesome one to refer to. OWASP for coding. There's all different great frameworks.
So you put your site in it and it checks it for you.
This one, the CIS,
Oh, that's pretty good. Oh,
the DoD, for example, uses
I'm
NIST.
learning a little bit.
Science and standards, right?
Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Malik. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
For sure.
Malik, you did not get to introduce yourself. So before we go, at least please introduce yourself. That would be great. And then we'll have Vivek and Brandon, close up, and then after that, we're good to go.
No, this is Brandon and Vivek show, man. So
doesn't matter.
Malik, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, lots of others did it.
Well, I'm the founder of Point Click. We're trying to run some of these programs for Gambia to really kind of help with just educational materials, just have that conversation. So we really appreciate you guys in this. I know a little bit about security, not as much as you guys, so that's why I was listening, learned quite a bit, and just wanted to share a few of the things that we leverage today to help some of our customers. But we really appreciate you guys coming on. This is really valuable, and we hope you'll be able to do it again so we can, again, cybersecurity is very tough. It's very hard. I think it was Vivek or Brandon that mentioned it earlier. Look at the low-hanging fruits. Most organizations want to invest in the hard things. They'll spend $500,000 on firewalls, but then they forget about the two most important things: the people and the processes. And it doesn't matter if you put all this stuff in place if you don't have, the ways of monitoring and making sure you're looking at what's actually happening. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. So having these conversations to hear from other people to tell you that, yes, that is important to actually, because that's where the risk is. The risk is that the people that are using this technology, that's where all these ransomware is coming from. Somebody clicking on something because you haven't really educated them on stuff. So Brandon, Vivek, you guys were super awesome. Thank you. And I hope we can do this some more. I know it's not for the US, but again, cybersecurity is global, it's mobile, it moves everywhere, so it doesn't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. So you guys taking the time to really be here, I mean, what more can we ask for? I'm definitely going to connect with you guys offline and try to pick your brains on a lot of other things. So appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Awesome.
And you summed it up, Malik. I mean, it's my pleasure to be here. And like I said, I look up to Brandon a lot too. In fact, it's a small world, right? That's how I got into this space in many ways, But at the same time, here's the deal, right? Let me super quick. I'll just end up with an analogy. If let's say I'm hiring for a security guard for a house. I know it sounds very palatial or very royal, right? When I talk about security guard for a house, who has that these days? But are you gonna get somebody who comes and volunteers himself and says, "Hey, I'll work for free. I'll be a security guard," or will you pay a security guard and have him do the right job, right? And that's just scratching the surface, right?
Right, for sure. So are we ending off or I think Dempa just jumped in?
Yeah, I think Denver just logged in, so I kind of had to mute him, unfortunately, because we're coming to a close right now. But nevertheless, I mean, if you want to hear who he is, we can certainly allow him to say something. Hello, Denver. Thanks for joining us.
If he has a quick question, or he or she.
Yeah,
is he? How are you all?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've been trying to log in. Unfortunately, I don't know, for whatever reason, I could not. So it's only now that I am able to pop in. How are you all?
Good, yourself?
I'm fine. Seren, how are you?
All good, all good. Thank you very much.
Is Denver Smart Professional College?
Yes, indeed, Denver.
How are you?
Did you have a quick question?
Yeah, do you have a quick question? Yeah.
Actually, when I heard of the program, I was like, I just want to know exactly your areas of focus so that I can be able to probably chip in and bring in questions if need be. But I don't know actually what you are into at the moment, because I learned that it's a cybersecurity session or something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is a cybersecurity kind of business best practices. Okay. So did you have any specific questions?
Yes, like for instance, cybersecurity is an area that is very essential when you are operating a business, and then in this part of the world, people don't focus much on it because maybe they are clueless or maybe they don't have ideas about the impact that it can pose on their businesses, especially if your systems are compromised by some elements that are always into those kind of stuffs. But if you know how to be able to apply some security measures to avert such kind of stuff is very essential. So I think it is something that has to be everyone's business. It's not supposed to be limited to people who are practicing IT personnel. So I was thinking it is essential for us to come together and probably learn from experts like you, and then we can always use those your expertise and your guide best practices and guides to be able to help ourselves to protect ourselves from those elements that are out there compromising systems.
For sure. And again, we're just about to end off. Was there a question that you had?
Yes, actually, my question is, if, for instance, institutions in this part of the world, what are some of the best security mechanisms that can be applied to have maximum security over some fraudulent activities that are on the web?
So you want to kind of do a defense in depth over the web?
Exactly.
Okay. So first is you look at cybersecurity awareness training is kind of the most easiest one to kind of look at. And that's going to be one looking at what should you be doing on the internet? What should you be providing? What information, what content, what should you be sharing? You know, how to use best practices of, and we were talking about this earlier, you can review the video about, you know, username and passwords and how to use different, you know, ways of securing your accounts, right? Things along that line. When it comes to corporations and business, we talked about like securing your business online using different security practices like OWASP, NIST, CIS. We brought that up as well. So different frameworks to kind of look at your business practices. And then looking at e-commerce, and you know, we talked a little bit about that, of how to secure your e-commerce practice, from having, you know, a provider that provides e-commerce to, you know, your encryption and security on your infrastructure, right? And then log monitoring. And then Vivek brought up an amazing point is people looking at people, processes, and technology, and that cycle of reviewing that constantly, right? For your security practices and business practices. So that's kind of in a nutshell to answer your question. Now, remember this, each of those areas goes a mile deep into what you need to do. And you look at administrative controls, which are policies, procedures, and then you go into technical controls, right? Log monitoring, technology, things you're looking at to implement the IT infrastructure security controls. So looking at those sides, you kind of have to look at both as you go through the people, you know, people, process, and technology, how you're managing your administrative controls and your technical controls.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, did that overwhelm you? Because I just heard all I heard was
okay.
that guy. Okay.
If I may end on an anecdote, you know, go ahead. Yeah.
It's okay. I think I am in the same level with you. I understand. It's not supposed to be a big deal. I think I can be able to digest what you have said. It's fine.
Well, and again, this is the type of video we recorded. We want to be able to give people this like a lot of information, because then you can go back and almost use it as a checklist, right? And go back, okay, hold on, let me review that. Okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and then it's your roadmap. It literally is your internal roadmap. Because I don't want to give people, okay, just go do pen testing, but then they come back and go, okay, what's next? I did my pen testing, but hold on, what's next?
Yeah.
I want to kind of get the full scope, and then you have a little bit of a roadmap for yourself. It's a checklist, and then you can kind of go through and kind of go, I got this. Oh, you mentioned that. Hold on, let me go back to the video at, you know, an hour and 20 minutes. What else do you say? Okay, let me write that down. Okay, now I'm going to do that. And now you have like a 5-step, 3-step, you know, 10-step process.
I think it's fine. I can go over the video. Probably that will help. I will be able to catch up all that has been said in my absence. It's fine.
Not a problem, Member. And another thing is, as I said, you know, even you mentioned, we will certainly, you know, cross our fingers and maybe get Brandon and Vivek back for another session, because I think even Menga was mentioning in the chat that some people had issues with one of the links to join. I think probably people from ITAG. So yeah, so we'll do another pen test on the link to see.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll be available. So certainly.
What's going on? But definitely, because it was quite enjoyable. And as I was telling Brandon and Vivek, I mean, everything people do, there's an element of security. So it's the most fundamental, basic thing that we need. We need security just as much as we need to eat and breathe. Otherwise, we'd be running like crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So thanks again. Vivek, did you want to say anything? Or Brandon, I'm not sure if we've got a chance to close.
Yeah, I mean, in closing, I would put it this way: like, you guys are all in the evolution of developing business and being successful, right? And amazing opportunities in this day and age to build a business out of small efforts, small technology, and build a great sized business. The things you got to look at is really understand business practices, understand your risk, review your security policies and practices to protect your business and your clients. Because you got to look at the whole circle here. It's you, your employees, your clients, your suppliers, your vendors, all are part of your business. And your goal as a business owner is to protect them all, right? And that's where you have to constantly, as that CEO of the company, is to keep putting that hat on and look at all areas constantly.
All righty. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Vivek, you want to close?
Yeah, definitely. Could not have hit it any better. Brandon hits the sweet
That's
points
right.
all the time, or the high notes, keynotes. But again, and I'm just reinforcing. In simple terms, right? You got to do what you got to do to protect yourself or your organization, right? And you start with the basics, like you were saying. All these different password managers, for example, you were talking about a minute ago. If you have a guy in your organization or in your company and puts a sticky sheet on the computer with his password and goes home every day, there's already a big problem there. So there are no short answers. You got to start somewhere, and wherever you start, you're always on the right track. Just make sure you start somewhere.
All righty. Thank you, Vivek. And finally, myself. I think when we started recording, I don't think I even introduced myself in the recorded version. So for those of you that don't know me, you can call me Omar, and I'm an ITC consultant. But in any case, we thank everybody that had an opportunity to be here. You can, of course, go back and watch the recording for those that couldn't be here. And hopefully, as I said, when we have the part 2, you can come ready and already have done your 3 steps, the 3 simple steps that Brandon shared. Hopefully you'd look into that, and maybe by then I would have changed my password from passwords from my browser as well. So I got a little bit of homework on my to do. But thank you all for coming, and thanks for sharing. Participants, because the conversation couldn't get anywhere if everyone wasn't sharing something, because it always starts with someone sharing something about themselves, and then, that prompts a question. Something else prompts a question. So appreciate everybody for participating and sharing information, and hope to see you guys in future sessions. It's always a pleasure speaking, and I'll see you on Twitch, Brandon, because I was there the other day, but I don't think you were not live. I was watching you, interviewing, what was his name? It was an older guy. Might have been, was it John Job something? Yeah, it was an older gentleman. But yeah, he had a lot of good jokes anyway. But it was fun. But either way, I'll be seeing you. And as I said, Brandon has shared his Twitch link, so I will share that as well. It's a channel dedicated to cybersecurity called Cyber Insecurity. So it's a pretty fun channel. There's a lot of people that come around and asking questions about lots of different stuff, from basic to advanced concepts. So there's always something for you to catch, even if you have it in the background until he says something you understand. Then yeah, jump in and enjoy that, because as I said, it's from basic to advanced. So sometimes you have to be in the field to grasp some of the concepts, but it's made very simple to digest, because I remember the other day I was just in the background, just listening to it while eating, while just just enjoying. So it's pretty awesome. But thank you all, and hope to see you guys again soon. On
Thanks,
that
Omar.
note, see you all. Goodbye.
Pleasure having me.
Ciao.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right. Bye.